Hello, everybody. How you all doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World, What's Happening. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Um, so, I want to start off with a couple of stories I saw in the news which I thought were interesting, and I want to comment on, having to do with Sarah Palin and then also Steve Bannon. And then we'll get to the main attraction of our show this week, which will be discussing Biden's recent anti-fascist speech, which I thought is probably one of the best speeches of his career. I mean, honestly, I have never really been a big fan of Joe Biden and haven't really seen a lot of his speeches, so for all I know, he could have something way better. But as president, I think this is one of his better speeches, definitely for sure. So, first I want to talk about Sarah Palin. So, those of you who have not heard about this, Sarah Palin has tried to make a return to politics and ran for the House. So, Alaska has one House seat, which for the last, geez, 49 years has been held by a guy named, what the hell was his name? Don Young, who recently died. And so Alaska had a special election. Sarah Palin ran for this House seat in this special election and lost, which is actually kind of amazing. So she lost to the Democrat, whose name is, I got it written down right here, Mary Peltola, which is actually kind of cool. Mary Peltola is a indigenous, native of Alaska, and will be the first. She'll be the actual first indigenous person from Alaska who will be in Congress, which is actually kind of awesome. Kind of sad that it took 200 years for that to happen or whatever, but actually Alaska hasn't really been a state for when did Alaska become a state? Fairly recently. I think what, in the 40s or something, in the 50s, something like that. So maybe not 200 years, but still, you'd think that they would have had an Alaskan native before this as one of their representatives, but better late than never, I suppose. Anyway, so the big deal about this, of course, is that first off, Sarah Palin was sort of the shoo-in for this seat because former governor of the state, so people know who she is, and she was actually kind of quite popular for a little while. I mean, she went off and became a celebrity after she was picked by John McCain to be a running mate way back in 2008, and then of course lost. John McCain probably, she probably in no small part contributed to John McCain's loss. But let's also not forget that John McCain was coming off of, up until that point, the worst president of all time's disaster of an administration. So it's like, you know, uh, a scarecrow with a balloon head with a happy face drawn on it with marker probably could have beat John McCain. But, let's also not forget that Obama was actually really good you know, um, at campaigning. I mean, he was awesome at it. So, all of these things contributed, of course, to the John McCain's loss. And Sarah Palin then resigned as governor and went off and became a reality TV star, which was very funny because way back then, if you guys don't remember, one of the Republican criticisms of Obama was that he was a celebrity, right? And I remember hearing this. I remember hearing this, like Rush Limbaugh would say this, and then of course all of the GOP like politicians would pick that up afterwards. Newt Gingrich and shit. So Obama's just a celebrity. He's got no substance. which is really funny. That's kind of that's one avenue of attack that Republicans never get to take ever again. After they got a literal fucking reality TV show star as their president, they never get to complain about Democratic celebrities ever again. Anyway. And so this was kind of the thing, it's like, well, here's a deep red state that's been red for literally 50 years at this point, 49 years, right? I mean, they've had the same guy in there as their representative. Like, Alaska only has one representative because there's only like 500,000 people in that state, right? But still, kind of unprecedented that it would go blue, if only for a short while. So you got to remember that this was because Don Young, kicked the bucket and went off to that big congressional, house up in the sky there. So that's why they had this special election, and they will have to square off again in November, right? And part of the reason was because they have ranked choice voting now. And the way ranked choice voting works is you put in on the voter registration card or whatever. You know what? I'm not going to, the chains, fuck the chains. I'm not going to do the chains right now. I want to do this, more organic shit. But the way like ranked choice voting works is you choose your first choice and then you choose the second choice. And what it is that if not enough people vote for your first choice, then your vote gets cast for the second choice, right? And in this particular race, there were 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. And what happened was not enough people, the people who chose the other Republican, besides Sarah Palin, did not choose her as the second choice. They chose the Democrat, right? And why is that? Why would people in Alaska vote for a Democrat? Especially over not only, someone who has name recognition like Sarah Palin, but someone who was the former governor. I mean, you'd think she'd have supporters, right? And it could be a lot of reasons, A lot of people in the right now are saying that, well, this is evidence that there's not going to be a red wave in this upcoming election, midterm elections. I don't think so. I don't think that's correct at all. I think there will be a red wave, and probably the Republicans are going to take the House. If not both the House and the Senate, because that's just usually what happens. I think it may not be as bad. They may not take as many seats, but they're still going to get control of one of those 2. It would be a miracle if they didn't get control of one of those 2. And it's the reason why is because people don't come out for midterm elections the same way they do for presidential elections. That's just how it is. And whoever's more motivated goes out there. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why Democrats could be motivated. I think the Republicans overstepping and, screwing with abortion might motivate a lot of people, like we've seen in Kansas, for example. Abortion went up on the ballot in Kansas and was resoundingly defeated. And, the Kansas is a deep red state. That means Republicans went out to vote to retain abortion in Kansas, right? But I still don't think this is going to translate to a red wave. And I think that when November comes along, it's probably going to go, I think Alaska's going to turn red again. Actually, I don't know. Well, it depends. If Sarah Palin's running again, we might get a repeat of what happened now. But I think this situation is somewhat unique to Alaska because people in Alaska don't really like Sarah Palin anymore. So if you guys don't remember, right, way back in the day, so she was the governor, right, of Alaska. She gets tapped to become the vice president nominee. And she becomes a sensation overnight because she was the first woman to ever be like to run as the vice presidential candidate. She was like the first woman for any political party to ever actually be chosen as a vice presidential candidate, which means that she could be potentially, she could have been potentially the first woman president. And it did a lot to steal Obama's thunder back during the election, right? For temporarily. But she sort of became this instant celebrity. She was all over the news, stuff like that. And, even though she was a complete idiot, and, it's sort of like it happened. She sort of parlayed that into a career as an influencer. Back then, back before they called such people influencers. I mean, this was 2008. So, social media was still pretty much in its infancy. It was all MySpace and shit like that back then, right? But still, she was an up-and-coming star. And so she decided to, after she loses the election happens, she decides to step down as governor. That pissed a lot of people off. The fact that she stepped down as governor really pissed a lot of people off. Because think about it, right? People went out there and, really stumped for her and dedicated stuff to her. And it's basically looked like she sort of stabbed them in the back for the money. And I remember seeing a video about this, right? So first off, I've got this video here. Let me just, quiet. Let me just turn this on here. First, let me put this in the chat for you guys so you can see what I'm going to watch, right? This is a video way back in the day of Sarah Palin and her husband at the time, who they are now divorced, Todd Palin, right? Apparently, they just got divorced rather recently. Sex scandal or some shit, who knows, right? And this is a protester. Let's make that big, right? This is a protester in Alaska with a sign here that says, "Worst governor ever." Right? This is back right when Sarah Palin, right when she, resigned, right after the election. So let's see what this says.
You swore on your precious Bible that you would uphold the interests of this state, and then, when cash was waved in front of your face, you quit.
Oh, you wanted me to be your governor. I'm honored.
No, well, I wanted...
Did you hear that? You hear that? So let's rewind that one more time. By the way, so this is Sarah Palin. This is her daughter here, Bristol. Bristol Palin, for those of you who don't know, is famous for getting knocked up twice out of wedlock with two different baby daddies. It wouldn't be a big deal because nobody really gives a shit, except that Bristol Palin and Sarah Palin come from the abstinence-only crowd. And that happened during the election cycle, during the campaigning, right? As Sarah Palin is flying around the country telling everybody that we need to return to family Christian values and abortion is wrong and sex before marriage is wrong and all this shit. Her daughter goes out and gets pregnant as a fucking teenager, who's not married. And it was just sort of like, just kind of the perfect illustration of, do what I say, but not as I do, right? Bristol Palin, for her part, parlayed that into a career as a motivational speaker. And this is no joke. This actually happened. Bristol Palin went out, started talking to Christian groups and conservative groups at schools and churches and shit about how you should, I'm not making this up, how abstinence only was the only way to go, and you should not have sex before marriage, all of this shit. And she would get paid like $30,000 an engagement to do this. So, this is Bristol Palin, right, who was like fucking 17 at the time, and for a few years afterwards, She took this scandal, turned it into a career as a fucking speaker, making more money than most people make in a fucking year per each, like, engagement. Right. Then she has another child out of wedlock a few years later. It was like, and the Christians and the conservatives and the abstinence only types and the anti-abortion people ate all this up. It was like they just completely ignored it and like, oh well, she's doing the right thing by keeping the baby. She's fucking telling you, she's up there standing up there telling you how you should not have sex before marriage, and then she goes out and has sex before marriage. And unbelievable. To my knowledge, she didn't marry either of the guys. I could be wrong about that. I know she didn't marry the first guy that she had her first baby with. Right. But to be honest, I haven't kept up with Bristol Palin over the last decade because fuck Bristol Palin, right? So that's Bristol Palin's story. Todd Palin was kind of a piece of shit too. And I think, like, basically cheated on Sarah, and that's why they're divorced now. Sarah Palin, right, went off to go join, like, fucking start a reality show, right? And this is what they're talking about here. This is why this lady has a sign that says worst governor ever. Let's rewind that just one more time, and I just want to hear what she says one more time here.
Or on your precious Bible that you would uphold the interests of this state, and then, when cash was waved in front of your face, you quit.
Then, when cash was waved in front of your face, you quit. Right. Yeah. And then Sarah Palin is going to sit here and be like, oh, we have so much in common, blah, blah, blah. But we don't really need to watch the rest of this. Let's turn that off for now. Right. That's kind of Sarah Palin in a nutshell. I have another link here for you guys here, which sucks because this one, there used to be a video. And because Flash is not supported anymore, you can't see the video. And I can't seem to find it anywhere. But I just put a link down there. And let me turn this back on, right? So this is unfortunate that we can't see the video. This is from Colorado Independent from August 15th, 2011. Video, Todd Palin says Sarah resigned to make money. There's supposed to be a video here. But thankfully for us, there is a transcript because the video is long gone. Right. Some people were pissed. This is right after Sarah Palin announced her resignation as governor. Right. The tape is brought to you by the San Francisco Chronicle Shaky Hand production. Sorry, 2 years after she renounces her, for governor, right? Todd is sitting here talking to a protester who is basically pissed off that Sarah Palin left, right? Todd Palin, what would you recommend doing when you got $700,000 hanging over your head and you got all these people filing complaints? Woman. You go for the money, obviously. That's what she did. Everyone in Alaska thinks she sold out. Right? And this is I wish I had this video, right? Todd, no. When you have debt hanging over your head, when you're making and you got complaint after complaint, what would you do? At the time, there was this Troopergate scandal where basically Sarah Palin used her she was accused of using her, power as governor to get a certain state trooper fired for some reason because of something, and that was a big deal. So she was getting all these complaints, and that's what she officially said that she resigned for. But here's Sarah Palin's husband at the time saying, hey, he fucking all this money. Anyway, woman, you wait for the complaint to pan out. Todd, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars, all this debt hanging over your head, and that will be there, bankrupt your family. Woman, oh, it's not there anymore, is it? Todd, that's right. Woman, you got quite the deal, sell out. Right? This is, this is what people thought, right? You go for the money, obviously. That's what she did. People were pissed at Sarah Palin, right? And think about it. Let's turn that off now. Did I put that in the chat there? Yeah, I did. Okay. Think about that, right? You know, let's say that you were a Sarah Palin supporter, right? When she was running to be governor back in 2006, I think it was, right? And, people went out and not only did they donate their money to Sarah Palin, right? Actually gave her their like hard-earned money so that she could become governor. They went out, they devoted their time to her. They went door to door for her. They made phone calls for her. Right. A lot of people volunteer to do shit like this, for politicians when they find someone they believe in, you know. A friend of mine, I remember back in 2008, like fucking phone banked for Obama. He did it for free, volunteered, because he believed in him. He believed in him and he wanted him, and that's the best way that you can support a candidate, right? Besides giving your money, it always helps to give money, but if you really believe in a candidate, the second best thing you can do, actually probably the makes a bigger impact than just giving money, is to volunteer your time. Do things like phone banking, do things like stuffing envelopes, right? That kind of thing. People did that for Sarah Palin. They believed in her, and then when the time came, she saw her 15 minutes of fame and was offered hundreds of thousands of dollars to go be a fucking, influencer. What did she do? She took the money, right? People don't forget shit like that. So yeah, Sarah Palin has a recognizable name in Alaska. It's not a good name, right? She's got a ton of baggage, and I think that if she runs, if it's the same again, like if it's her versus Mary Peltola, and then the other Republican, which I don't know the other Republican's name, but if it's those three again, I think Sarah Palin loses again. So apparently it was a pretty nasty campaign between her and the other Republican, which I don't really know much about that. It's just what I saw in a video. But that's funny shit. So I don't know if that really applies though to the rest of the country. Like when they're talking about the red wave is crashing and is not going to apply. Like I think this is a special circumstance. I don't think that this is much of an indication elsewhere that Republicans are not going to clean up in November. They're probably going to. So just be, and I'm actually kind of happy now that Biden is doing all of this stuff now before the elections, before, like canceling student debt, for example. I'm glad he did that now and didn't try to wait until later to do that because, chances are he's not going to be able to get away with shit like that after the election. So, anyway, just wanted to remind everybody, because, Sarah Palin is trying to break back into politics. Wanted to bring that up and remind everybody that she is kind of a piece of garbage. Sarah Palin is, she's not just a prototype Trump, She is a grifter. She's one of the OG grifters. You know what I mean? Like, one of the biggest OG grifters, like, of all, who has done nothing but parlay her political career for personal gain over the last 10 years. Right? So I'm glad the bitch lost. Fuck Sarah Palin. One other story I want to talk about here. Steve Bannon is going to prison. Which, this sounds like great news to me. This is the Gazette here. Let me put this down in the chat for you guys. This is what we're going to be looking at next. And judge denies Steve Bannon's request for new trial in contempt of Congress case. So, very, very happy to see this, because if there's one of these criminal gangster douchebags that deserves to be in prison, it's Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a criminal. He is. He was convicted of fraud. You know, he had that whole thing with the build the wall thing where he went out and stole money from Trump supporters saying that we're going to build the wall ourselves because, like, you know, the wall was illegal. Right. And then instead of actually taking, like, you know, he manages to, like, you know, fool these people into giving him $20 million so that he can go buy people's lands and start building his own wall. And instead of doing that, he just stole the money, bought himself a yacht, and, you know, that was just a little too egregious for the Justice Department, who arrested him and convicted him of that, and he took a pardon. Donald Trump pardoned him for ripping off his own constituents. So keep that in mind, right? When you take a pardon, it's an admission of guilt. That goes with the pardon. That means that, yes, you are guilty. You are saying, by accepting that pardon, that I did this crime. Steve Bannon is a criminal. He has admitted as such. And now he's going to prison. He's going to go to jail for contempt of Congress. So what is this all about? This is about the January 6 hearings, right? Where Congress gave him a subpoena. He decided to tell Congress to go pound sand, and Congress did the very rare step of actually using the power it has to compel someone to testify, and decided to lock his ass up for contempt of Congress. That's how it's supposed to work, right? It doesn't usually work that way very often. It's hot as a motherfucker here. I gotta turn on a fan, sorry. If you hear fans and stuff in the background, I apologize in advance, but it's fucking hot in here. But that's what's supposed to happen. See, you know, when you have, like, Congress and the January 6th thing, like, you know, what they're doing, they're going out and they're, let's turn this off for now. But you get the idea. Judge denies it. He's facing up to, 2 years in prison, right? So he can, minimum 30 days, maximum 1 year. He's got 2 counts, up to $100,000 fine. I really hope that the judge decides to throw the book at his ass. He is getting sentenced in October, so a month from now. October 21st. So about a month and a half from now, Steve Bannon is going to get sentenced. This is, of course, you know, unless he gets, like, some other appeal to some higher court, which could always happen. And it could eventually make its way to the Supreme Court, in which case he's probably going to get off because the Supreme Court is corrupt as fuck. And, you know, right-leaning. Not just right-leaning, but, you know, dominated by right-wingers who will most probably ignore what the law actually says in order to get one of their own off the hook. But who knows? Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it'll never get to the Supreme Court in time. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, but getting back to what I was saying before, that is how Congress is. That is how it's supposed to happen. Congress is supposed to be able to say, you must come and you know, testify. And whether you testify, whether you take the fifth, whatever, doesn't matter. But they're supposed to be able to compel you to testify. And if you don't answer that subpoena, the law says they are allowed to charge you with that crime, you know, with basically not showing up, you know, contempt of Congress, right? That's a crime, you know, and you're supposed to be able to go to jail for that. Now, they very rarely do it because what happens is that, you know, they refer it to the Justice Department. The Justice Department usually doesn't do shit because the Justice Department is, like, supposed to be apolitical, even though the Justice Department is totally right-leaning. Let's not bullshit ourselves, folks. They're definitely fucking right-wing. But still, you know, the Justice Department has this excuse that it's going to cause division and blah, 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 and all this other shit, and 9 times out of 10, the Justice Department never decides to act on it, you know. This is why the subpoena for Mark Meadows, for example, never went anywhere. They can refer him to the Justice Department. Justice Department decides not to fucking because they weigh lots of shit and they say things like, well, he's got executive privilege, blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. That's the official excuse. Well, Steve Bannon does not have executive privilege. He doesn't have any of that stuff. He's got no defense for not showing up. And I hope they really do I hope he gets the maximum 2 years, because if there's anybody, any of these key players in the insurrection and all of the myriad of shady deals and potential crimes and straight out actual crimes that the Trump White House engaged in, if any of those things, if any of those people, if there's one person who should go to prison, it's fucking Steve Bannon. So, and let's be real, folks. If he does go to prison, he's gonna go to fucking rich person prison. Anyway, he's gonna go to like the country club fucking prison, where they have like everybody gets their own private fucking bedroom, right? Where there's like a salad bar and a masseuse and shit like that. That's where he's fucking going. If they don't give him house arrest instead, but even that, I think, is like the minimum that should fucking happen to Steve Bannon, because Steve Bannon is literally one of the architects of the downfall of democracy in this country. Speaking of the downfall of democracy in the United States, did you see Joe Biden's speech the other night? In front of the red background, his sort of anti-fascist speech, his pro-democracy speech. That's kind of making the Maga world lose their minds a little bit, and that's going to be our main attraction for the rest of the stream so far. I won't play the speech now because it's 25 minutes long. I think it's a rather good-looking speech, but it had a little bit of unfortunate branding, which I think I don't know if they actually thought about this, very well. Let me see here. There we go. Here's the, what it looked like. Right? Let me just go back here. Let's turn on my monitor for a second here. So, I'm sure you saw this and the way this was lit. This is Biden's speech on threats to democracy. And the room was lit with this sort of like, red kind of background behind it. Now, if you looked, right, this is what it really looked like. It had red here and then blue and, red, white, and blue. Right. That was what the room was really like, lit. But the camera just saw him in front of this sort of like red background like that. And you could see all of these memes and stuff. So after that happened, right, let's turn that off. We started getting all kinds of crazy shit. And the Republicans lost their fucking minds over that. Right. Basically, the hashtag pedo Hitler trended on Twitter after that. Right. Where lots of, basically they were comparing Joe Biden to Der Fuhrer. This is the, let me turn on my laptop window again. This is the Babylon Bee, who devoted an entire page. This is a screenshot of basically what they had. I don't like going to the Babylon Bee because they're full of shit. Screenshot of the Babylon Bee comparing Joe Biden to Hitler. Biden abolishes office of president and names himself Supreme Führer. Biden signs non-aggression pact with Poland. Biden announces invasion, I'm assuming of Poland over here. Biden opens camps in which to concentrate political dissidents and other desirables. And then you can see they really went all out with the pedo Hitler thing Biden announces strategic alliance with Mussolini and Emperor Hirohito. Biden stalled 12 miles from Moscow, right? Really, really leaning into it hard. Okay. The Babylon Bee, for those of you who don't know, is sort of like conservative ripoff wannabe Onion. You know how the Onion is like actually funny and makes like poignant like points that are relevant and meaningful, but also entertaining and funny by like, you know, speaking truth to power and entertaining at the same time. Like the Babylon Bee, like, is kind of the exact opposite, where it's run by conservative Christians who don't know what funny is and don't know how to use satire to like actually like examine and point out the flaws in a political system, right? Like, what makes satire funny is that it's true, you know, from a certain point of view. It's taking the truth and extending it to a logical, ridiculous conclusion, and that's what makes satire funny, right? And when you see shit like, you know, Biden is Hitler at a speech where he's defending democracy, where his message was the exact opposite of that, it not only makes it unfunny, it makes it like almost frustrating, because it's sort of like, dude, you're missing the entire fucking point, you morons, right? That's really conservative comedy in a nutshell, right there. Anyway, so that was some funny shit. Let's see. You know, I don't know if you saw the speech though, but I thought it was pretty good. It was very, you know, Joe Biden is old. Okay, let's not mistake. Adversary Fandon, hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? Joe Biden is fucking, what, 78 at this point? He's old as fuck, right? He's starting to get that sort of slurry speech that, like, old men get. You know, when you get, like, super old and like, you're in, like in your 80s and 90s, and you start, like, you know, slurring and, right, it's sort of like you lose, like, tongue control, shit like that. That's starting to happen to him. That just happens to everybody when you get old, right? It's going to happen to you too. If you, thankfully, if I am blessed enough to live to be fucking 80 years old, which I probably won't, but if I am, you know, the same shit'll happen to me, right? So, you know, probably not the best delivered speech in his career. And plus, Joe Biden is starting to kind of like, you know, he's got a little bit of that cognitive decline. You can hear it going. Although he does seem to be pretty sharp-minded for someone who's 70 fucking 8. But still, you know, starting to happen. He's starting to kind of, you know, misspeak a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's fine when it's somebody like you or me, when we misspeak, when, you know, I misspoke. I just did it just right now. Shit. All the time. You know, when I'm like in my streaming and shit, but I'm not the president. One of the things that the president should do is be an awesome public speaker, just because it makes him look more competent. People pick up shit like that and will criticize you for that. You know, how many times did you hear, you know, when Obama was president, that he's such a great speaker, you know, and then, you know, Bush was like a terrible public speaker. And it's like, well, why don't you examine the fucking policies they're talking about? Who gives a shit how they fucking speak? It's like, no, that stuff matters. It's ridiculous. It's bullshit. And, you know, it shouldn't matter, but it does. You know, public opinion is very much based on superficial, shallow shit like that. And the better somebody speaks, you know, the more points they'll come up. And this is part of the reason why the Republicans always fucking focus on that. You always notice how, like, whenever Biden, they never talk about Biden's policies, ever. They talk about how he's a shitty public speaker and that how he stutters, and then how he, like, misses words and stumbles across his words. Shit like that. They focus on stuff like that because it's an easy way to criticize somebody without actually having to give any substance, you know. Yeah, but adversary Fandon, yeah, Biden did always have a stutter, but, you know, it was like, I mean, a little bit. It's starting to get a little bit worse, but the guy's 78. You got to give him a break. When I'm 78, if I can still talk without stumbling over myself, I could barely talk now. How many times do I fuck up my like little speeches here when I'm talking, like all fucking time? So it's like, I don't know. I think it's fine, and that's the thing. That shit like that never bothered me, but it does. It does matter. It does, you know, increase your likability rating when somebody sees like a great public speaker, for example. So anyway, getting back to the substance, though, his speech, was all about defending democracy. And I thought, the substance of the speech was rather good. It was very, you know, like he went out, like the room that he was in, what was it called? The room was I can't remember the actual name of the room that he's in, but it was apparently the room where the Declaration of Independence was written, or the Constitution was something like that. It was, you know, yeah, where the Constitution was ratified, I think, and very much a pro-democracy, get out, vote. And what he did is he called the Republicans out for what they fucking are, which is fascists. That's what they are. The Republican Party at this point is no longer a they're an all the way 100% mask off fascist party, right? When your entire party revolves around one personality, and you will basically like betray any principle that you formerly stood for and do everything you can to defend that person when they break the law, then yes, that's your party is a fascist party. And that's what the Republican Party is right now. They are bought and sold to Donald Trump. Donald Trump right now is in probably the biggest legal trouble of his entire life, which, the last stream I did 2 weeks ago, like, I don't think he's going to be able to worm his way out of this one. I really think this is it. If there's anything that Trump could go to jail for, it's fucking stealing top secret, documents. Ripping off state secrets from the government, right? He has no defense. Like, every defense they gave is pathetic bullshit, The whole, like, I declassified them anyway. Well, doesn't matter if you declassified them. They don't belong to you. Right? They could not be declassified at all. It's still not supposed to have them, right? Like, all of that shit. Oh, I delegated this to someone else. I didn't bring him myself. Too fucking bad. That's his other defense. That, this was all Mark Meadows' fault. Like, I told him to like, take care of this, and I didn't. It's like, no, but the documents have handwritten notes from Donald Trump himself on them that he obviously wanted to keep these things, right? Now, we returned all of them, except you didn't fucking return them. You said you returned them, and then they come and they raid your house, and they find all these boxes of shit. And then lately, now fucking, they found these empty folders, something like 43 empty top secret folders were part of the fucking things that they pulled out. So what happened to the documents that were in these folders, right? That's scary shit. There's an article that I saw where apparently lots of the spies and informants and things around the world that the CIA was using, like a lot of them have been captured and killed over the last couple of years. Is that linked to this? So there was some kind of security breach. So has this been going on for quite a while here? Has Trump and his friends been like selling this info? Is that like part of what some of those missing, empty folders were about? I don't think he's getting away with it. I think Trump's going to fucking prison, right? I mean, fuck. If he does get away with it, then that's it. Forget it. America's over. America's fucking over, right? The thing is that the Republican Party is doing everything they fucking can to, defend this piece of shit. They're doing everything they can to stall. Every single one of them is out there, with the exception of like Liz Cheney, right? Who just lost her, she lost her re-election anyway, so she's on her way out. You know, all the other ones, Mitch McConnell is the only other one who's like even expressed any type of sort of pushback at all against Trump. But, name another Republican, a high-ranking one. Ted Cruz, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? All of them, every single one of them. Even the GOP, organization itself is still paying Trump's fucking legal bills. And they finally said, okay, this one you're on your own. We're not paying you. We're not paying, but they have been for all of these other scandals, all these other things that, the New York, like, fucking probes into his businesses where he, like, overvalued his properties, all that. They've been paying all of that shit for him. And now they finally said, okay, no, you have to get your own lawyer. We're not paying for this one. And now, like, there was another story how, like, nobody wants to work for Trump because he fucking rips people off. It's like, shit's coming back to roost there, Donnie. So I think he's fucked, but it's true. He's fucked, but it's definitely true that the Republican Party is bending over backwards trying to defend his ass, right? When he's guilty, he did it. It's fucking guilty. That's not, and not, add on to all of that, all of the other things that the Republicans are doing to destroy democracy in this country. How they continuously rely on things like voter suppression. How they tried to, because we had a pandemic, and so that way, so people, like, what they did is, in states like California and such, they gave everybody mail-in ballots so people could vote without spreading a disease and getting killed. So what do? They fuck up the post office. He gets a guy in there to, like, get rid of all the ballot counting machines and stuff like that, mail sorting machines, that kind of thing, so that the ballots will come in late and they won't be counted. It's like, in Georgia, for example, they go and they shut down ballot boxes in Democratic districts. And all the Republican districts, no, they got plenty of ballot boxes. They got plenty of polling places. They got drop-off fucking ballot boxes, all that stuff. It's only in the Democratic, districts is where they all get shut down. It's only when you're in, like, one of the cities that's a Democratic stronghold in Georgia that you have to wait for 12 hours to go fucking vote. How come you can't just vote anywhere? Why does it fucking matter? You should be able to walk in, be like, hey, this is my name. They look you up on a computer. There you are. Cast your ballot. The end. How come you can't do that? Right? Why is it that they make it extremely fucking hard to vote? Why is it only in red states where they want to, like, do things like voter ID? You got to have an ID. Okay, well, what if you don't drive? What if you don't have a driver's license? Right? What if you take buses everywhere? Or you take trains or something like that? You don't get to vote? What if you lost your wallet, right? What if you show up and they don't take the ID you have? It's like, oh, well, this is a state, ID, but we don't take this one. It has to have the real voter ID sticker on it or whatever the fuck, right? That doesn't count as you. And then they have some asshole sitting off to the side, challenging votes going, oh, what's your name? Juan Martinez? Well, we have, like, 6 other Juan Martinezes that are registered to vote here, I think you're all the same guy going around voting 20 times, doing that on purpose, doing shit like that on purpose to disenfranchise people. And this is like, common tactics that Republicans have been doing for decades. And now you have in certain states this push to change the way that the electoral votes are ratified so that if there's a suspicion of voter fraud, the state legislature, which happens to be Republican controlled, can just decide to throw out that election and appoint their own electors. Right? That was the core, by the way, of the attempt to steal the election from the Trump people. That was their whole plan, was to, because that is in the Constitution, actually, right? That if an election is disputed and there's evidence of fraud, then it goes back to the states. And the state legislatures get to choose who the electors are. That's in the Constitution now, right? I mean, that's always been in the Constitution. And that was their whole plan in the first place. And now they're trying to make that easier in pretty much every red state. So even if you do go out and you wait in line for 12 fucking hours and you get past all the voter restriction shit that they throw at you, right, they're trying to make it so that if the election doesn't go their way, they can legally just throw it out and choose their own people. Well, is that fucking democracy? That's not democracy, right? What Joe Biden said in that speech is accurate. It's true. Okay, which party? Okay, everybody always says this shit like, okay, well, the political parties are both the same. They're all the same, blah blah blah. You hear that a lot from libertarians and shit. They're both the same. Why should I bother? When was the last time a Democratic politician did anything close to this? Right? Where are the voter suppression tactics from the Democrats? Where are the Democrats trying to throw out elections? Right? Trying to make it so that they can, if the election doesn't go their way, simply throw it out and appoint people they want. Where is that? Name one. They can't. Because it's not fucking... Because this is coming specifically from one political party. Because the Republicans are fucking fascists. Right? They're anti-democratic. They never trust democracy anyway. Go to patriot.win. You know what patriots.win is? It was formerly the Donald on Reddit. And then that got shut down. And so they made a website, basically a Reddit ripoff, but with only one subreddit. So essentially a forum called it was called the Donald.win. And then they changed that to patriots.win now. Right. Go there and read that shit, and you'll see, that's sort of the belly of the beast. This is like the hardcore Trump supporters. These, all these people do is sit around and post fucking memes all day about how Donald Trump is like the fucking, Jesus Christ and shit, right? Go read some of that shit sometime, and you'll find a very big disdain for democracy, Once you get past all the stupid memes and the pictures of Donald Trump, fucking playing golf and shit, with his face, superimposed on fucking Sylvester Stallone's body or something. Once you get past all of that stupid shit, you start seeing lots of very disturbing things. Memes about democracy itself. Democracy is, the wolves deciding for the sheep what's for dinner, shit like that. It's because the right wing in this country has never been a fan of democracy, ever. Right? That's the thing. Everybody complains about, how it's so, polarized now. It was always polarized, alright? Donald Trump is not the first president. He was not the first president to lean into authoritarianism. He was not the first president to use violence at his rallies, for example. During this speech, this Biden speech, throughout the entire speech, some fucking idiot douchebag in the background is screaming, "Let's go, Brandon," on a bullhorn. I'm assuming outside of the room or something. Right. Through the entire speech, and you can hear it, and it's just quiet enough to where it doesn't ruin the speech, Some fucking idiot has a siren and is screaming, "Let's go, Brandon." Right. And Biden even addresses it at one time. And you know what Biden said? He said, we believe in free speech in this country, just like that guy outside. He has a right to be there. That's what he said. People laughed in his speech, right? He played it for comedic effect. He is right, of course. You do have a right to protest in this country, right? It would have been nice if it wasn't right outside of the fucking room so that it disrupted everything, but that is what protesting, you do have that right in this country. And here's the difference here is that Donald Trump would have said, "Get this guy out of here, punch him in the face, and I'll pay the legal bills." Right? That's what would have happened if this was at a Donald Trump rally. They would have escorted that guy out. So, Secret Service guys would have gone out, you know, if not his own followers, and probably beat the crap out of that person. Trump was not the first person to do that. People used to get arrested at Bush rallies for protesting, for wearing the wrong t-shirts. People will get busted. In fact, I actually have a link here. Right, let me see if what do I do with my link? It was... yeah, here it is. Here it is right here. Let me just put this down in the chat for you guys so you can read this. This is a article from a few years ago. Pair arrested in anti-Bush t-shirt. Oh, let me turn on my laptop window, excuse me. Pair arrested in anti-Bush t-shirts to be paid $80,000. What happened to this, right? Way, way back in 2007, right? A couple arrested at a rally after refusing to cover t-shirts that bore anti-President Bush slogans. Settled their lawsuit against the federal government for $80,000. You see that? So they were just protesters at his rally, and they got arrested for just wearing the wrong t-shirts, right? Handcuffed and removed from the July 4th, 2004 rally at the state capitol where Bush gave a speech. Judge dismissed the trespassing charges against them, and an order closing the case was filed Thursday in the District Court of Charleston, right? Because it's not illegal to protest places, right? So the thing is, were they protesting? Were they making a shitload of noise? No, I remember this, right? I remember interviews with these people, right? They show up at a Bush rally, and all they had were t-shirts, and they get arrested, right? So it's like, no, Bush, Trump was not the first person to use state power like this. We saw all those videos of Trump doing all this bad shit, like sending out cops. Like, remember that one where there were like protesters outside the White House, and then like, Trump sends out a bunch of goons to beat the shit out of them, and like send tear gas so that he can get a photo op holding a Bible upside down. Remember that? It's like that shit like that was already happening, just not to that same scale, So the Republicans have always been authoritarian. They've always been authoritarian. They've always been anti-democracy, right? And I'm glad fucking finally, somebody from the Democratic side is pushing back on this shit, right? Like that speech, right? It's like they should have been saying this shit 10 years ago because it was true then, and maybe if we would have pushed back a little harder back then, back during the Bush years, back during the Obama years, when we started seeing the inkling of this fucking MAGA shit forming, maybe it wouldn't have got as bad as it is now. Maybe when Bush was having people arrested for wearing the wrong t-shirts, maybe when Sarah Palin was fucking threatening people. There was a thing where like Sarah Palin like had this campaign ad where she put like targets over certain politicians' faces, Maybe if we would have like took that a little seriously, right, this shit wouldn't be happening. Remember Sharon Angle way back in the day, basically threatened violence. This was in 2008. Sharon Angle was running for the governor of Arizona, and basically said that if we don't win, that there's going to be violence. She said, if I don't win, there's going to be Second Amendment remedies. People are going to take Second Amendment remedies, right? And it's like, yeah, it hit the news for a few days, and then it went away. It's like, well, no. I mean, yeah, Sharon Angle lost, but that should be enough. When a politician says something like that, that should be enough to ruin their career, right? It's not anymore, This kind of thing happens from the Republican side constantly. See, that's the thing. The Republicans are constantly like, the first thing they do is threaten violence. The first thing they do, they constantly insult people. They constantly like, and that was one of the big things like that. You're seeing the reaction to this speech from the right wing is they're saying, oh, it's divisive, it's political, it's divisive. He's not being the president of the whole country. Well, fuck you. All right. Like Donald Trump constantly would belittle Democrats, call them fucking criminals, say that Hillary should be locked up, all this shit. Right? Kimberly Guilfoyle got up in front of the RNC and trash-talked California, said it was full of like, criminals and drug addicts and shit because of Democrats. People are saying that, she actually like they're saying that she should come back and run for office in California. Yeah, do it. Kimberly Guilfoyle, please come back to California and run for office, right? I can't fucking wait to see the political ads against that vile fucking, I don't know. You know what Kimberly Guilfoyle is? She's a lamprey. She's a lamprey is a sort of like swamp worm that attaches itself to fish and sucks out their bodily fluids. That's what she does. She's sort of like a Kimberly Guilfoyle is like a talentless, like pathetic, no talent lamprey that attaches itself to rich people and other like famous people in order to suck away their like fame. Right? And that's why she's like fucking Don Jr. right now. I don't think they're married. I think they're just boning, right? And the minute that Don Jr. becomes like unpolitically like, satisfying and not famous enough for her, she's bailing. You guys understand that, right? Cuz it's not like there's any actual love in that relationship. It's very much transactional. He's getting pussy, she's getting fame and wealth. And the minute that he's not famous anymore, she's gone, right? Kimberly Guilfoyle, by the way, was formerly, I think she was married to Gavin Newsom. So, from like, who's like the Democratic, like, governor of California. So it's like, yeah, okay. So that basically tells you right there, that's all a game to this bitch. It's all a game. She doesn't actually give a fuck about politics. She's using this to get famous. Right? She's using it to get famous and to like become like fucking powerful. Famous and powerful and rich. And she doesn't actually give a fuck about like ideology. Right? Fuck Kimberly Guilfoyle. Anyway, I wanted to show a couple of reactions to let's read some comments, and then I want to show some reactions to Trump's speech Trump's speech. That's a Freudian slip there. To Biden's speech, and then we will make fun of Ben Shapiro for a little bit. Let's see what we got here. Dynacat, wasn't he 78 when he was elected? Who, Biden? I think he was 76. How old is Biden now? Let's see. Biden is... Why is it not giving me... No, okay. How old is he? He is 79. So yeah, I think he was like maybe 77 when he was elected. So yeah, he's getting up there, man. Let's, but I think, I mean, shit. I could tell you right now, by the time I'm 79, if I survive to be 79, I would not be able to handle the stress of being president. When I'm 79, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to play video games all day. That's it. I'm going to retire. I'm going to bust out the fucking Nintendo 64. Right? And the GameCube and my fucking Sega Genesis and shit. And hopefully my fingers will not be too, like, messed up with arthritis, because that's going to be my day. Wake up, fucking, Mortal Kombat. That's what I'm going to be doing all fucking day. I'm going to be playing all the video games that I missed, over the last 40 years. That's my retirement plan, so. If you guys didn't know, I have a massively giant video game collection. I actually used to run a website called Ultimate Console Database way back in the day. It was all about classic video games and stuff. The site's still up, but it's like hasn't been updated since like 2009, and I'm thinking I might just shut it down and sell off the domain because I don't have the time for it anymore. I'd love to keep it up, but I really don't have the time. And I look at it now, and it's like the site is like embarrassingly out of date. Extremely out of date. I mean, it's been a decade, and plus it was like all hard-coded in HTML and shit. It's like, nah, the time that it would take to update my old gaming site, I just don't have. So Depends. I don't know. Maybe I could find it. It still does. I still. Here's the thing about it is I still get email, so I know it's still up there somewhat in the Google rankings, and people are still finding pages on it and sending me email about stuff because I have a lot of like clone game systems on there. But anyway, moving on. Dynacat, yeah, he has no defense, but he also has no charges. Well, I'm hoping that they're not too chicken shit to charge him. I think we're talking about Trump and the Stealing State Secrets Act, or thing that he is fucking guilty of. He's guilty. I am very confident. I'm not going to say allegedly because he fucking did it. Right? He can sue me if he wants to. Right? I think they're probably going to wait until after the midterms. Right. I hope they fucking charge his ass. Man, if they fucking don't charge him, because they have his ass dead to rights on this. Okay? He's got no defense. They know he fucking did it. They're at his fucking house. Right? They have his fucking handwritten notes on these things. And, this is like shit that people would get like decades in prison for. And if they let him get away with this, man, it's it. That's it. It's over. It's over. We might as well just fucking give up on the United States after that, because there will be no rule of law. Because the only reason that they wouldn't charge him is because he's rich and an ex-president. That's it. Right. Keep in mind, if he was a Democrat, they would charge him. Okay? If this was Barack Obama who did this, he'd be in prison. Right. If this was Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, he'd be in prison. Right. It would probably still go through all of these same steps, but they would get charged. Why are they not charging Donald Trump right off the bat? I really think they're taking it very slowly on purpose because they don't want to formulate civil unrest. That's what I think. I think they understand that, hey, if we don't convince the public that he's guilty of this, then there's going to be violence, right? We should not, because that's the thing, because that is the go-to response from the Maga people is violence, right? How do you stop that? You don't, right? Dare them to do it is what I say, right? How do you? It's like kind of like a bully, when you're in grade school or whatever, and a bully shows up, steals your lunch money, and dunks your head under the fucking toilet every fucking day. And then you go tell the teachers about it, and the teachers don't do anything about it. The teacher, in the analogy, the teacher here would be, the Department of Justice. They don't do anything about it. Well, are you just going to allow this to fucking happen forever? No. What do? Right? You fucking, get the bully by himself, and you kick his fucking ass. That's what you do. Right? That's how you stop bullies. Let's be real. And, the thing is, it's like, it'll keep happening forever. If he gets away with it, the next Republican's going to do the exact same thing. Ron DeSantis, whatever. Ron DeSantis will fucking get away with it, right? Matt Gaetz will get away with it. It's like, no. Laws are supposed to apply to all of us, right? The only way you defeat bullies is by fighting. Now, fighting does not always mean violence. There are different ways to fight back, right? I mean, in my bully analogy, going and telling the bully's parents and getting his ass busted that way is fighting back. So we could talk, that's a different subject, right? But the analogy is, no, you don't let him get away with it, right? And so what? So what if his followers threaten violence? What the fuck are they going to do? I guess what? Do a mass shooting? Well, that shit happens every day anyway. All right? They're already doing that. They're already Trump supporters out there, doing mass shootings and stuff. What was that? There was a shooting at a gay pride parade, not that long ago. Fucking one of these Trump, chud fucking Proud Boy pieces of shit. Right? They already engage in violence and stabbings, and the Proud Boys already show up at like pride events and stuff, and like where drag queens are like reading storybooks and attack people. And they're already doing shit like that. So it's like, what are they just gonna do it more? Like, you know, I mean, because here's the thing, right? There will be no civil war. Like, when they have like the Republican conservative MAGA wet dream of us having a second civil war so that they can go hang all the Democrats or whatever, that shit's not happening. Okay, if anything, it will be if there is sort of a conflict like that, it'll be terrorism on their side, right? I say bring it, you know. Seriously. Let's see how the mainstream Americans react when MAGA supporters go out and bomb a police station. How fast do you think they're going to turn against those fucking people, right? When they go out and they try to burn down let's say they go and they try to burn down a Democratic, office, which has already happened. That's another thing, they try to fire. That happened during the election. Some fucking Trump supporter piece of shit went and threw Molotov of cocktails at a Democratic office in like Louisiana or something. How fast is the public going to turn against that, right? How fast will other non-MAGA Republicans turn against that? The Republican establishment will turn against that in a nanosecond, right? The instant these fucking people start going out and like actually engaging in actual violence like that, it's over. It's over. They're crushed. That's it. The government will come down and destroy these people, right? They will. Then you'll start seeing the Matt Gaetzes and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and all those people turning their backs on them, saying, "I never wanted violence. I never wanted violence. I just spent the last 5 years telling everybody how like every Democrat is, satanic pedophile baby raper, controlled by George Soros with injecting nanoprobes into your body through vaccines and shit like that, but I never wanted actual violence." Just watch how fast that. So yeah, I say bring it. I think maybe my next stream will be all about. I think I want to do a stream, maybe not the next stream, but it'll be about the coming Civil War and why I think it's a load of shit. But moving on, kind of already spent too much time on that one. Fat Man TV. Well, they have no plans. That's as good as non-existent. Yes. Yes, that's the thing, right? We were talking about, like, what's their plan. Yeah. They don't, that's, you can only get by on that for so long. Like the Republican Party, the conservatives in general. And when I say not just the Republicans, it's like, not every conservative is a Republican. You have libertarians, you have people who only vote, strategically, who don't really identify as Republican, stuff like that. Like, the problem is you notice they never talk about substance because their policies are extremely unpopular. The anti-abortion thing now is playing out for that. Like that's we're getting a real demonstration of how unpopular their policies are right now with their overturning Dobbs and or whatever the Dobbs case that overturned Roe v. Wade or whatever, right? So they can't talk about their policies because their policies will sink them. People like bodily autonomy. People like Social Security. People like, freedom and the ability to vote, right? People like this stuff. They like Medicare. They like it when their families get health care. They like these things. God, that looks gross, doesn't it? Like his groin is just filled like with weird tubes and shit. Kind of disgusting. I don't know. Anyway, so people like that, and when you hear, a politician saying, "I'm going to take this shit away from you," then, like in Kansas, right? Kansas is a heavily, deeply red state. And if you were to make a wage, if I were to make a wager, I would have said, yeah, they probably would have voted to overturn abortion. That's not exactly what happened, did it? Right? There are more registered Republicans in Kansas than there are Democrats, right? There's not enough Democrats in Kansas in order to keep abortion rights. So that means the Republicans in Kansas voted for abortion rights, right? Which shows that, those policies are great. They support the politicians that say these things when, it suits them. But when it fucking comes down, when the rubber meets the road, the actual conservative policies are not popular at all, right? That's, that's great news. So it's like, so what do? They just attack. They attack the things, the lowest things that have zero substance at all. And this is why they fucking actually, when you have big elections with huge turnouts, Republicans lose. That's why. Because people know they're full of shit, But you'll never see it. You'll never see the Republican plan for health care. You see often like pundits and stuff. They're always talking about homeless people and drug addicts and everything, and how it's like California is filled with homeless drug addicts who shit in the streets, whatever. They never explain what their plan for, eliminating homelessness is, ever, because they don't have a plan. Gavin Newsom has a plan. You know what they just did in California, right? For homeless people, you know what just happened? They have created a program so that, and this was something that they did during the pandemic, right? And now they're extending it even more. During the pandemic, when everybody was on lockdown and there was no tourism dollars coming in, you had all of these empty hotels everywhere. Nobody was traveling, right? So what they did is that they paid the hotels to shelter homeless people and get them off the streets, right? And that worked so well that they've dedicated more money to that to keep that program going. So if you're in California, right, and you're homeless, you can get on this program and get free hotel rooms. And yeah, that's not a permanent solution, right? That's not going to get you up, but you know what it does? It gets you off the streets, right? Gives you a place where you can sleep, right? Where you can fucking get food, where you can wash your clothes, where you can take a shower, stuff like that, right? So that you can look presentable, and that way you can get work. Because no one's going to hire you when you're sleeping in a dumpster. Okay. No one's going to hire you when you don't have an address. No one's going to hire you to do anything. You can't even get a job at McDonald's when you're homeless. That's what everybody says, get a job. How? How the fuck is someone who's literally sleeping in a tent on the sidewalk supposed to get a job? When you go fill out the fucking, job application and you don't put an address, right? You don't put a phone number. How are they supposed to call you if you don't have a phone? It's like, even if you do get the job, they can't contact you, right? It's like, how? Well, this gives you an address. It's like, okay, well, now I live here for 6 months or something, right? I got an address now. I can take phone calls at this place. I can use the Wi-Fi at this place. And, half the time when you try to get a job, it's like, they don't even give you job applications. It's like, go to the fucking website, fill out the application there, right? You can't do that if you don't have a computer, if you don't have a phone, if you don't have access to internet, right? Well, this is what people fucking need to help them get off the street. They need these things. They need shelter. They need internet access. They need an address. They need a phone, right? You want people to get jobs, this is what you got to give them. California's doing that for you, right? Is Texas doing this? Is Louisiana doing this? Is there any programs at all in these states to help homeless people? No, there isn't. You know what they do with homeless people in these states? They put them on buses and they send them to California. I wish I was making that up. In fact, you know what? I didn't even prepare for this one. I'm just gonna do a quick Google search. Homeless bus California. Right. Here we go. Vice.com, 2020. Instead of helping homeless people, cities are busing them out of town. This is the kind of fucking world we live in. Right. That's the article that I just looked at. Let's turn this on. Right. Let me just go over here. There we go. This is the Vice article. Instead of helping homeless people, cities are busing them out of town. Right. Where is it happening? $40 in his pocket. That's all Isaac Lamford had when he stepped off the Greyhound bus onto the streets of San Francisco in 2010. He was in Iowa. Right? I didn't even look this up. I didn't even pre-screen this at all. I just... Because I remember this happening. Right? Over the years. And this is not something that's just happening now. This has been happening for fucking decades. Right? I think the first time I heard about this was in like the 1990s. When, like, in Texas, they would put, like, homeless people on a bus and send them to New York. And now it's like, okay, Iowa, right, where, like, fucking... basically, they're putting people on a bus and sending them to fucking San Francisco. It's like, oh, it's your problem now. That's a fucking, like, you know, let's turn this shit off, right? That's the fucking, like, Republican plan to end homelessness. Send them to another state. Such bullshit. That shit should be illegal, by the way. Anyway, Dinah Cat Loves Me, naughty word t-shirts. I think they weren't the shirts they had. What did they say? Let me open this back up. Let's see. The shirts they had said, one of them had a no superimposed over the word Bush. And then, actually, it's right here. So it says, the front of Rank's homemade t-shirts bore the international symbol for no superimposed over the word Bush. So I'm assuming it was a circle with a line through it. Back of Nicole Rank's t-shirt said, Love America, Hate Bush. On the back of Jeffrey Rank's t-shirt was the message, regime change starts at home. So, yeah, no naughty words on their shirt. Unless, you know, it's not like it said, fuck Bush or something like that on their shirt. But that still would be bullshit because you're not supposed to be arrested for something your t-shirt says. I mean, I guess if you had porn on your shirt, like a fucking actual naked people and shit, that's one thing. But I see people walking around with bad language on their shirts all the time. Anyway, so yeah, that's some fucking bullshit. So I want to look at some of the reactions here to Biden's speech because the Maga chuds have been melting down like crazy. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, right, on Twitter, which you know she's always a barrel of fun. So let's turn this on. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, what do you have to say about Joe Biden's speech? They chose this imagery. It's unreal. Joe Biden is Hitler. Hitler... right off the bat. What's that called when you lose an internet argument when your first go-to criticism is comparing your opponent to Hitler? Some kind of rule. I can't remember what it is, but yeah. And then she's retweeting herself. I always love when politicians retweet themselves. She's retweeting herself, saying Joe Biden just declared all of us enemies of the state. He's a danger to us all. Joe Biden must be impeached. Like we saw before, folks, this part was red, but it was blue and white on the other sides. It's the American flag colors that he's in front of. But yeah, this does look a little unfortunate. You know what this looks like to me? This looks like in... do you ever play Command and Conquer? Way back in the day, it was like a real-time strategy game from EA. It was from a company called Westwood, who eventually were bought by EA, and then EA fucked it up with Command & Conquer 4, completely destroyed the franchise. Anyway, there's one of the games where like it's red alert, and then like the Russians are invading the United States, right? And the president in Red Alert 3 goes crazy. and like creates a secret base inside of Mount Rushmore, and like Abraham Lincoln and George Washington have laser eyes that are like that blow up tanks, and you have to like, like you have to like stop the president of the United States who's lost his mind. Like and the thing with Command and Conquer is that they would use full motion video, like back when that was like a thing. It was funny as hell. But anyway, kind of reminds me of Command and Conquer. This reminds me of the one of the speeches in Command and Conquer where the president goes nuts and like, decides to like fucking take over the country and make it into a fascist like thing. But anyway, so yeah, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene just going straight for the Hitler comparison. Here's another funny one where she used a deep fake of Hitler's face over Joe Biden. I never realized how much Joe Biden actually does kind of look like Hitler. He kind of does. This is a deep fake though. They've superimposed it. Well, they basically used like a cell phone filter. So it's not really a deep fake, but let's listen to what this says exactly. I think this is only 9 seconds long. Yeah, with the swastikas on the side. Right. Keep in mind, Marjorie Taylor Greene went and spoke at Nick Fuentes' event, FPAC or whatever the fuck it's called. So, of the two people here mentioned in this tweet, between Joe Biden and Marjorie Taylor Greene has gone and spoke in front of actual Nazis. Right? She has actually gone to an event put on by white supremacists to speak in front of them and tell them about their America First, stupid America First fascist bullshit. And she's turning around and blaming Joe Biden for being a fascist when the content of Joe Biden's speech was decidedly anti-fascist. It's all a game to these people. They don't actually care, folks. It's all a game. Let's turn that off. This is Laverne Spicer. Actually, let's turn that back on. More tweets. This is Laverne Spicer comparing Biden to Hitler. Replace MAGA Republicans with Jews in Biden's speech last night, and you have a Hitler speech word for word. I do like how some people are pushing back against that, because that's completely insensitive and also total fucking bullshit. Joe Biden's speech last night was not a fascist speech. It was an anti-fascist speech. The substance of the speech was decidedly pro-democracy, pro-American. But, they're not attacking the actual, they can't attack the substance. The only thing they can attack is the appearance. The most, if they actually try to attack the substance, they lose. Here's also Laverne Spicer saying, which I thought this one was funny, I'm a black MAGA Republican. Joe Biden knows nothing about me. Yes, it is hard for us to understand that, yes, there are black people who are conservatives. And there are black people who support Donald Trump. The same way that there are Latinos and people of Mexican descent who also support Donald Trump. That, I understand that we on the left really have a hard time squaring that, because it seems to us that these people are going against their best interests. Where it's an entire movement that has gained power through demonizing people just like them, and yet they still support it. And it's hard for us to understand that. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that. And it's because, not every, just because you're a minority doesn't mean that you vote in a block. It doesn't mean that you believe or act in a certain way at all. No, there are very much conservative people who are black and who are Latino and who are Asian and everything, And the way that these people justify supporting a movement that so very obviously demonizes them is by rationalizing it by saying that I'm one of the good ones. We spoke a little bit about this last time, the whole thing with Django Unchained and all that. But that's essentially what it is. I'm one of the good ones. I did it the right way. Laverne Spicer, I'm a black MAGA Republican. I did it the right way. I went out and earned my money the right way, and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, all this other stuff. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a, whatever, right? And the Democrats are trapping other black people, other Latino people, right? Filling them with lies and trapping them in a cycle of poverty. And she very well may even believe this. I don't want to, Laverne Spicer most likely is a grifter, but I don't want to just straight out blame. She very well might actually believe these things. And it's like, this is stuff that we on the left got to wrap our head around. That it's like, people, their race, their sex, their race, their sexual orientation, their gender does not dictate their political beliefs. And that's a hard thing for us to get. It's like we should be reaching out to people like this as much as well as, on our own side. There are people on the left who don't actually believe in all the shit that we assume they do. The minorities, for example, who are not very cool with gay rights or trans rights, for example. We should be reaching out to these people as well. And it's like, that's reality. Reality is that people are diverse, and it's not just their skin colors which are diverse. It's their beliefs, and what we should be doing is making the best case we should as to why our beliefs are best for the country. Notice I didn't say our beliefs are right or that our beliefs are correct. I didn't say that. I said we should be making the best cases that our beliefs are best for the country, right? Because you should be able to believe whatever you want, and you should be able to believe whatever you want and still vote someone that doesn't align with you 100% because you think they're better for the country. That's in my view, a completely 100% valid stance to have on something. People should not, you should not have to be ideologically 100% consistent all the time. And there should be room in your political movement to take someone who supports you on one thing and not another thing. And it's like, that's fine, doesn't matter, as long as you can count on their vote when it counts. That's how people in a diverse country like the United States live with each other, right? And we need them. I use the black community a lot in this example because it's a big thing. There's a lot of homophobia, a lot of transphobia in the African American community in the United States, right? We should not shun these people away because of that. We need them on the left. We need their votes, right? Well, how do you square that? How do you square the fact that, they're an oppressed minority who does not support the rights of a different oppressed minority? Well, these are things that we have to come to terms with. And we should be making the best case to these people on our side to say, hey, equality for everybody, including the trans people, including the gay people, is best for the country. That's what we should be doing. And, you don't have to, you don't have to believe whatever, but you should believe that equality and, access to equal access is the way that we should go. And I think that's how we can do it. So anyway, kind of went off on a tangent there. Let's talk more about some MAGA chuds. Here is Darius Mayfield. Let's delete some of these guys here. Darius Mayfield, who is running for New Jersey's 12th congressional district as a House candidate, House district, excuse me. Biden's distribe last night wasn't a speech, that was an attack on the very values of our nation. The lawn of Independence Hall should not have been desecrated in such a manner. What is that? What is this guy trying to say? Attack on the very values of our nation. So the speech was all about how democracy should be protected. So how is that an attack on the very values of our nation, right? It wasn't. It's obvious that Darius Mayfield is lying, right? Did he watch the speech even? You know, he's a politician running for, of course he watched the fucking speech, right? He's running for Congress. So he's lying on purpose because that speech was the exact opposite of what he said. And that's the thing, is that now, because all the Republican MAGA people at home who follow this fucking guy obviously didn't watch Biden's speech because it's Joe Biden, they don't care. So now they think that Joe Biden actually did attack the very values of our nation. That's the thing. It's like, that's the thing about propaganda, is that propaganda doesn't have to be true. It just has to sound good. It just has to elicit an emotional response. There will be people now for the rest of their lives who will think Joe Biden is an actual Nazi now because all of these fucking dipshits on Twitter are telling them so. You know, where they could take 25 minutes and go watch the speech for themselves and come to the opposite conclusion, but they're not going to do that. You know, this is why this shit's dangerous. This is why we need to push back against these things and tweet back and all of these things where our voices have to be louder. You know, because you can't get a shotgun and force Darius Mayfield to say what you want him to say. You can't do that, right? Your voice has to be louder than his. You know, we need to convince people that what we believe is best for the country. That's how you do it. That's what politics is all about. And that's why I'm glad Joe Biden in his speech called the Republican Party out for what they fucking are. You know, I'm glad that he finally got the ball sack. You know, Obama didn't do it. Clinton didn't do it. Right? And the Republicans have been using this rhetoric for as long as I can remember. Probably before. But as long as I can remember, at least 30 years. You know, most likely way before that. And it's like, this is the first time I've ever seen an actual president fucking stand up for this shit and say, this is enough. And I don't give a fuck about, like, being divisive. You know, Republican presidents have been divisive forever. I mean, Donald Trump is incredibly fucking divisive, you know. Every speech Donald Trump had was him saying, you know, lock up Hillary and how, like, you know, the Democrats were all fucking, like, criminals and all this other fucking shit. Every single speech they had, you know. He said that in all of them. I mean, well, not all of them, but, you know, constantly. He would say it over and over again. And even today, you know, he's tweeting that shit or whatever, and truthing it on his fucking stupid ass Twitter ripoff. Anyway, here's an actual positive reaction. I thought this was funny. I don't even know who this guy is. Eric Champanella. If you're pissed about Biden's speech, he was talking about you. I thought that was funny. So, I think I'm gonna follow this guy. I don't even know who he is. Follow him. There we go. He got a follow from me. That was cool. So, but here's one that I thought really stood out to me. This is from a guy named Nick Adams, right? This is Nick Adams. So who the hell is Nick Adams? And this one really stood out to me. President Trump is right about everything. This is not a debate. It's a cold, hard fact. I really like this too because it had this very horrible picture of Trump underneath him. It's like, god damn, that's what Trump looks like without the fucking Cheeto makeup on. Like, Jesus Christ, he looks like he got punched in the face or something, didn't he? Like, he looks seriously fucking horrible right here. Like, he's gained at least 20 pounds. I don't know, man. That's bad shit right there. But anyway, I thought this was hilarious. So Nick Adams, for those of you who don't know, was an Australian right-wing conservative pundit who shows up on Fox News, and he's also a conspiracy theorist, and he occasionally writes for townhall.com. He also compared Biden to Hitler. Let's see, I've got my images here. Let me just scroll down. Oh yeah, here's one from from Mike Cernovich and Laverne Spicer. Before we move on, let me put this here. I just took an image of this because I thought this was funny. This is Mike Cernovich after tonight's Nazi-inspired speech by Biden. See how Trump doesn't get indicted. Nazi-inspired speech. It's just funny. It's like it was the exact opposite of that. Laverne Spicer, it was the setup. President Biden, democracy. Laverne Spicer, pedo Peter. Can we get a copy of Biden's speech in the original German? See, it's like, they're all leaning super hard into that Biden is a Nazi thing. Anyway, here was one from Nick Adams here, which has been deleted. So, managed to get a screenshot of this. This one was in particularly ridiculous. I don't think Hitler ever said anything about the Jews that was as straightforwardly evil as Biden said about me as a Trump supporter last night. Lie after lie after lie, encouragement to make other people fear me, and we know what fear does to groups. Disgusting. So, first off, Nick Adams here is showing that he knows nothing about the Holocaust. Right. Because Hitler most definitely said very, very bad things about Jews, which were incredibly evil. So evil that they, went and exterminated 6 million of them, which people just seem to keep forgetting about that. When they're comparing Joe Biden to Adolf Hitler, they keep forgetting about the things that Hitler actually did and what he actually believed. And no, during the speech, there was no lie after lie after lie. What Joe Biden said was the truth in his speech. The Republicans very well are attempting to destroy democracy. They have been for decades. They very well are under the sway of one strongman figure and have done everything in their power to keep, Donald Trump out of trouble, right? There's a reason. You see Trump being investigated all these times, being impeached twice, and every single time the Republicans form up ranks and, protect his ass, right? And the ones who don't get primaried, the Republicans who were brave enough to actually vote to impeach the second time around, the time, let's forget about the first time when Donald Trump, withheld federal funding from the Ukraine in order for them to create dirt on Joe Biden that didn't exist. You remember that? Remember that first time Joe Biden got impeached? I mean, I know that was 2 years ago or whatever, and that's like ancient fucking history. But, he was guilty of that shit. We had a, phone call of that. He's guilty. He fucking did it. He gets off. Why? Because the Republicans refused to impeach him, right? The second time, he tried to take over the country, right? He sent a mob of people to murder the vice president, right? While people in Congress were objecting to the vote count so that... Holy shit, did I just How long did that turn off for? Ah, fuck. God damn it. No, you know what it is? There's a little button on my headphones that I think I was swinging around and it hit it. Then I got muted. Anyway, sorry about that. So Nick Adams is fucking ridiculous. But let me just go back to that now that you can actually hear me talk. Sorry, folks. This one here. This is the one I was talking about. I don't know when I fucking muted myself, so I'm just going to start this little bit over. President Trump's home is sacred hollow ground. The FBI should not be allowed to conduct illicit raids on any Trump properties. That's fucking ridiculous as fuck. And that makes me think it says, sacred hollow ground here. Like, when you hear that, that's sort of like a church, right? Like a temple, kind of like say where you would put a big giant gold statue of something that you worship. Sort of like that gold statue of Donald Trump at CPAC. Remember that? You know, and if you were to like talk to this guy, I'm sure you would say that Nick Adams would probably tell you he's a Christian. And I'm pretty sure the irony of you know, the idolatry that he is instilling, you know, with Donald Trump right now, I'm sure that would just fly right over his head. And it just really got me. Like, this guy, like, is, like I said, I don't know if I was muted, so I'll say it again. He is a particularly egregious, like, ball licker, you know. So Nick Adams is fucking hilarious. Let's go ahead and turn that off. A little bit more about Nick Adams. So yeah, he was. I don't know if this actually, if I was muted for this either. So I'm just gonna say this again. Yeah, he at 21, he was elected the deputy mayor of a city in Australia called Ashfield, and he was not a resident there. He took advantage of a loophole which allowed non-residents to run for office. Somehow becomes the deputy mayor at age 21. He ran as part of the Liberal Party, which is Australia, is essentially what we call conservatives here. They believe in free markets and small government and social conservatism, stuff like that. As part of the Liberal Party, he was not around most of the time because he went on a book tour in the United States as a motivational speaker. His big idea during his stint as mayor was to kill all of the pigeons in the city in order to stop the avian flu. That's not really how the avian flu is spread around. Here's a quote from Nick Adams in regards to his brilliant idea to commit pigeon genocide. Ashfield should be inhospitable to pigeons, he said at a council meeting. Avian influenza does not respect borders. I am not an expert. I'm not an accountant, and I'm certainly not a pest controller. Don't ask me about procedure. What I would like to see is no pigeons in our area. So I'm just going to suggest this thing that I know absolutely nothing about, and I'm going to tell you I know nothing about it, but I think we should do it anyway because that's my brilliant fucking idea. You know, you could, like, I don't know, get people health care or some shit. You know, you could do something like that. You know, vaccinate people, but instead, why don't we just, you know, kill a bunch of pigeons? That makes it way easier. It's like, brilliant fucking idea there, Nick Adams. He then never showed up to any of the council meetings as he was busy traveling in the United States on a book tour and as a motivational speaker, where he racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in phone calls and taxi rides, where he charged that all to the city for his own personal use. As he was on his book tour and his motivational tour, he charged that all to the city of Ashfield in Australia. Typical fucking Republican, if you ask me. One thing that it looks like conservatives in Australia and conservatives in the United States share is the predilection to exploit their political office for their own personal gain, as Nick Adams clearly did there. Right. I don't understand how people do shit like that and don't go to prison, but apparently he, like everyone else, like all of the Republican politicians in the United States, are allowed to fail upwards whenever they commit crime like that and get away with it. He also apparently bitched out a reporter, and that got him suspended from the Liberal Party. So I guess in Australia they actually take stuff like that a little more seriously here because, you know, if a Republican politician yells at a reporter in the United States, he gets rewarded. You know, you remember that one guy, what's his name, Greg something or other, who, like, Greg Giaffanti, straight up fucking body slammed a reporter, won his election anyway. You know, we here in the States actually support it when only Republicans, get physical, start yelling at people and even assault them. You know, Republican, you know, can do anything they want. You know, Democrat does some shit like that, they lose. You know, Democrat will lose their position in office for being the victim of something, like being the victim of, say, a sex scandal or something like that. Like, what was that one woman's name, like where she was like a senator or something, and like naked photos of her came out of her, and she like resigned in shame, even though it was like she wasn't cheating on her wife or her husband or something like that. What the fuck was her name? Kim something. Let me see. Let's see. I guess if I can remember. Democrat. Let's see. Leaked nude. I'm not going to show this because, you know, this will come up with wrong. Katie Hill. That was her name. Katie Hill. If you remember her, she was a congresswoman, and leaked nude photos of her came out. You know, they were just naked pictures of her, right? She didn't cheat on her husband. She wasn't even married at the time. You know, she didn't cheat on anybody. She resigns in shame for being the victim of leaked nudes. You know, that just kind of goes to show the double standard that we have in this country. When you're a Democrat, you lose your job for being the victim of shit. When you're a Republican, you can straight up fucking, like, you know, assault someone and injure them, and not only not go to jail for that, but also win the election. That's funny shit. Anyway, wanted to talk about Nick Adams, but I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Ben Shapiro. So here is Ben Shapiro reacts.
Here's the thing. Joe Biden.
Shut the fuck up, Ben Shapiro. Here is Ben Shapiro reacting to Joe Biden's speech. Because before we end this, we have to make fun of Ben Shapiro. That's what we're going to be looking at right now. Let me go ahead and share my screen, my laptop window. Let me move this over here because that'll make it easier. And plus I want to be able to read the comments. So, Ben Shapiro, of course, lost his mind like a little baby after Joe Biden's speech. Let's make that full screen and put it down in the corner so I don't get gigged. And let's hear what the man has to say.
Here's the thing. Joe Biden, when he says that his political opponents are the font head of all evil in the universe, when he says that, you have to understand he really likes dissent. He likes having these big, complicated...
First off, Joe Biden did not say that. He did not say Republicans are evil. He said MAGA Republicans. And it specifically says it in that speech. Specifically says MAGA Republicans. Not all. He specifically says that not all Republicans, right? Because over the last, 15, not just 2 years, but over the last 15 years, he's been trying to bridge that gap, right? I think naively, this didn't start with Donald Trump. Remember, the whole MAGA thing really kind of started when Barack Obama was elected, and it was Donald Trump which brought form to it, which harnessed that sort of racist like backlash. They were calling, I don't know if you remember, they were calling Barack Obama the Antichrist. Like, literally, there were commercials that the Republican Party put out, not some weird-ass fringe church or something. The actual GOP put out commercials where they were implying that Barack Obama was the Antichrist. Let's not forget that. So, yeah, Trump just sort of consolidated all these people and turned the movement to his own purposes. But it was already there. This undercurrent of weird religious fascism was already there in the GOP, and they've just embraced it full force, right? Ever since those days, because Biden was the vice president then. He was working his ass off to try to bridge the gap between these people, because it wasn't always like that. Biden back there in the past he's part of the old guard back in the day when you actually could get consensus on stuff. During the Bush first years, the Reagan years, the Clinton years, I mean, yeah, it was divisive, but it wasn't as insane as this. You know, the government didn't shut down during the Reagan years, during the Bush one years. During the in the 70s, back with fucking like Nixon and Carter. Government didn't shut down. There wasn't impeachments every 5 fucking seconds, right? They didn't have to use emergency supplementals to fund the government. There were no fights over things like, the debt ceiling, that kind of thing. You actually were able to get consensus on stuff, and part of it was because the Republicans were not fascists at that point. Nixon, for example, started the EPA, which up until that point was the biggest like environmental policy change ever, and probably has not been. I mean, an entire department dedicated to like clean air, clean water, preserving species. Right? That came from a Republican. Would that ever happen today? Name one Republican in Congress, put them as president. Do you think any of them would sign a bill putting an entire department dedicated to preserving the environment? Like, no, it would never happen today, right? Joe Biden comes from that old school mentality, that old school, world, right? Where old school world, you get what I'm saying? He comes from that era, right? When it was possible to make deals with people, when it was possible to, when Republicans were not insane. And he really tried, and not just his first 2 years as president, for fucking a long time, to try to like bring people together. Well, kind of seems like he's fucking through trying. Kind of seems like he's sick of that shit, and now he like wants to win. Kind of seems like Biden has finally figured out that there's no appeasing fascists. When you appease fascists, it just gets worse. You can't appease, like when they tried to appease Hitler by, we'll just give him the Rhineland or whatever. Doesn't work. They take more, they take more, they take more, right? Because fascists are liars. And the only ideology they have is me first. My shit first. And they've demonstrated this is their behavior. You look at not what people say, but what they do. And what has the Republican Party done over the last 30 years? They've demonstrated over and over and over again that they'll lie, they'll do whatever the fuck they want, they'll break any fucking norm there is, they'll straight up break the law even, and smile right at your face as they stab you in the back, over and over and over, stealing Supreme Court seats from Eric fucking Merrick Garland right in front of your face, right? Pushing through a Supreme Court seat for fucking Amy Coney Barrett 3 weeks before an election, whereas when they held they held the same seat open for a year and a half when it was Obama's turn, right? Lie right to your face, defending a president who's fucking guilty. Right? Donald Trump is guilty. Let's remember that. Donald Trump was guilty the first time he was impeached, the second time he was impeached. He's guilty now. Right? I mean, but they're doing everything they fucking can to like protect his ass. Why? Why? Any other politician would have been sunk 1,000 times over. Why are they protecting Donald Trump? Right? Because their entire movement revolves around him. Because he's the strong man in this situation. Without Trump, there is no Maga, and it will quickly fall apart. I really believe that too. Like a lot of people on the left always say some shit like, well, some other smarter politician will come and harass. No, I don't think so. Ron DeSantis, I'll be very surprised if Ron DeSantis manages to twist around the MAGA movement for his own purposes. I think that, most of the people that support Trump didn't vote before, and I think most of them won't come out when Donald Trump is not involved, because that's what happens. Because when Donald Trump fucking endorses somebody, they lose. Why? Because Trump is not in that election, and people only go out to vote. His supporters only come out to vote when it's him. So, anyway, went off on a tangent, but yeah, basically saying that very first thing out of Ben Shapiro's mouth here was a fucking lie. Moving on.
Conversation. He likes the give and take of American politics, you traitorous bastards, you.
I believe in the give and take of politics, in disagreement and debate and dissent. We're a big, complicated country. But democracy endures only if we, the people, respect the guardrails of the republic. Only if we, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we, the people, see politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side believes there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. And that's where the Maga Republicans are today.
He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. That line is 100% correct. What did Donald Trump say in 2016 when he thought he was going to lose? Right? What did he say? He said it was rigged. Okay. It's all rigged because it looked like he was going to lose. If you remember, leading up to the election, he was down by like 15 points. Okay. In 2016. Like in fucking October. I made videos saying that it would be a miracle if he wins. I remember this. Those videos are still up about how fucking wrong I had it. I thought Hillary Clinton had that shit in the bag. Right? So did everybody else because he was fucking down so much. And then he wins. Suddenly, and you know, remember the like week before the election, what did Donald Trump say? You know, when they said, "Will you accept the outcome of the election?" What did Donald Trump say? He said, "I'll accept it if I win." Right? That's the actual quote from Donald Trump. There's video of him saying that. "I will accept the results of the election if I win." And then the MAGA people fucking go nuts over it. You know, the people at his rally start cheering him, right? It's like how fascism right there. That's fascism, okay? You know. And then what happened? You know, in 2016, they were all like, oh, if he doesn't win, there's going to be violence. People, Trump supporters, even way back then, 2016, threatening violence if he lost. You know, because that's their go-to play. They always they threaten violence first. You know, they don't protest, they don't protest, they don't threaten to fucking investigate or whatever. Their first fucking reaction is violence, is threats. Death threats, right? Fucking remember in Michigan when there were like mask mandates and a couple of guys just went to prison for that now, they threatened to fucking kidnap the fucking governor of Michigan, and a bunch of them showed up with guns and took over the fucking state capitol. Remember that? Do left-wing people immediately default to violence? Not really. No. Yeah, okay, you know what the reaction from the right wing is going to be? They're going to say some shit like, what about 2020 and Black Lives Matter? Right. First off, vast majority of Black Lives Matter protests did not turn into riots. Secondly, the ones that turned into riots were mainly because the riot police showed up and started fucking shooting people in the face with rubber bullets. I'm sure you all remember that. People getting shot in the face with rubber bullets. Cops going around popping people's tires. Right? I know that happened because I've had it on my stream. I streamed it. I saw that. Video of cops going around smashing windows, right? Popping people's tires, and I'm not going to excuse BLM protesters for, because there were riots. I'm not going to excuse that, right? What I am saying is that it's not the default reaction from the left. Violence is not the default reaction. You know what the default reaction is from the left? Protesting. Going out, standing around with a sign, which really, in my opinion, doesn't do very much. Getting angry, and then getting organized and voting, right? So we went through the getting angry phase in 2020. Now we're in the getting organized and voting phase. And this is why you're seeing shit like Sarah Palin lose in Alaska. right? This is why you're seeing all of these special elections around the countries, even the ones where the Republicans win in deep Republican districts. A lot of them are still coming out very close, and they're winning by smaller and smaller margins. And it's like we haven't even hit the actual election yet, you know? So no, that's what you're supposed to fucking do when you lose. You're supposed to go out, you're supposed to protest, right? You're supposed to get organized, you're supposed to go vote. You're not supposed to show up with machine guns immediately and, like, take over a fucking, like, you know, federal building. You're not supposed to show up at the Capitol, right? Break in, threatening to hang your own vice president, smear fucking, you know, dookie all over the walls, shit like that, you know, and try to steal an election. You're not supposed to do that. So, yeah, fuck you, Ben Shapiro, you lying piece of shit. Complete lying piece of shit. Moving on.
You spent 4 years and tens of millions of dollars on the theory that either Hillary Clinton won or you were cheated.
Excuse me? I think he's talking about Russiagate, right? That was never about Hillary Clinton losing the election. Russiagate was not about... It was about an investigation into election interference by the Russians. Which, by the way, that investigation proved that. It did. The Russiagate did actually prove that there was election interference by the Russians. You know, it proved that the existence of Russian troll farms and influencers who would go and specifically spread fake news in order to prop up the Republican Party in this country. It proved that. It also proved lots of other things about how just seemed like so many of Donald Trump's, you know, associates just seemed to be, you know, I don't know, having contacts with Russian nationals, where a few of them even went to jail for this. You know, a lot of them which, of course, Donald Trump pardoned. So that was not about Hillary Clinton just losing and then investigating Donald Trump because she was jealous. No, actual crimes were committed there. See, that's the difference between, you know, because then, like, what he's trying to do here, he's trying to, like, compare, you know, all of the Maga chuds who fucking went out and tried to murder Mike Pence to Russiagate. He's trying to do that because that's the only argument that conservatives actually have, is whataboutism. That's really the only argument they've got. What about this bad shit people on your side did? You know. And it just so happens in real life, it's like, well, no. Crimes were not actually committed on Hillary Clinton's side. Right? Crimes were actually committed from Donald Trump. So, moving on. The argument falls flat because it's bullshit. Moving on.
I'm sorry, Democrats have not accepted the results of a presidential election that went the other way for them since about 1988. They thought the 2000 election was stolen. They did
That's complete bullshit. Moving on. But let's go back a little bit.
Other way for them since about 1988. They thought the 2000 election was stolen. They did not accept that George W. Bush was a legitimate president.
The 2000 election was stolen. And I will say that till the day I die. Because it's exactly... Bush v. Gore was exactly... the election was stolen. Right? Because what happened? Let's remember Bush v. Gore. What actually happened, right? There was what was called the Brooks Brothers riot, where there was a recount. Because what happened? Okay, let's go back a little bit, right? Fox News declared George Bush the winner prematurely, right? So the thing is, in Florida, though, there was a pretty big, problem with, like, hanging chads and shit like that. And so it was close enough to where they did a recount. And the Bush people sued in order to stop this recount. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And you know what? Let's just open up the Wikipedia article on Bush v. Gore. Let's open that up. Bush v. Gore from, here we go. Landmark decision in the United States, blah, 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 okay? So basically what happened, Florida Supreme Court ordered a statewide recount of all undervotes. Right? These were votes that were not counted correctly because of the hanging chads and shit like that, right? Let's make this a little bigger so that you guys can read this too, right? Oh, wrong one. There we go. Bush v. Gore, right? Supreme Court ordered a statewide recount of all the undervotes, over 61,000 ballots that the vote tabulation machines had missed because the machines were fucked up. And, they kind of do that on purpose, by the way. They make the machines shitty on purpose so that votes don't get counted. That's another voter suppression tactic that you see a lot in red states. Bush campaign immediately asked the Supreme Court to stay the decision and halt the recount. Justice Anton Scalia, convinced that all of the manual recounts being performed in Florida counties were illegitimate, urged his colleagues to grant the stay immediately. On December 9th, the 5 conservative justices on the court granted the stay for Bush, with Scalia citing irreparable harm that could befall Bush as the recounts would cast a, quote, needless, unjustified cloud over Bush's legitimacy. What does that mean? It means that the recounts could show that more people got votes for Gore in Florida, right? That is written into the decision. This Bush v. Gore, that is written into the decision. Right? The recounts could cause irreparable harm to George Bush's legitimacy. A needless, unjustified cloud. How the fuck is it unjustified for someone to get more votes and then become the president? How does that fucking happen? Right. So they made a 5-4 per curiam decision, and the court ruled strictly on equal protection grounds that the recount be stopped. Right. Specifically, the use of different standards of counting in different counties violated the Equal Protection Clause. Right. This goes on to say that if they would have applied the same standards to each county, George Bush loses. Al Gore gets more votes, right, if they would have continued on with those recounts, right? This is a per curiam decision. What does that mean? Right? Per curiam decision is an opinion ruled by an appellate court of multiple judges in which the decision rendered is made by the court. In contrast to regular opinions, a per curiam does not list the individual judge responsible for authoring the decision. Basically, what it means is that this counts only this time. Right? Essentially. Let's turn this off. Basically, that means this counts only for this time. Let's make this smaller here. Right? And it's not going to be applied to every other... There will be no, what do you call that? Precedent set by this. So they wouldn't be able to take that decision and use that as a precedent in another decision. Because I think that's what it means. I could be wrong there. But because they knew the decision was bullshit. So yeah, fuck you, Ben fucking Shapiro, right? 2000 was stolen, right? The Supreme Court decision itself says it was fucking stolen. Right. But did the Democrats, invade the fucking Capitol and try to murder Al Gore? So because he wouldn't steal the election for himself because of that decision? Did you see 10,000 Democrats show up and demand that Al Gore be hung because he wouldn't certify, because he would certify that election? Did that happen? Were there Democrats running around in the halls of Congress smearing feces on shit, stealing laptops? That kind of thing, trying to break in to fucking lynch all of the senators and House members? Did that happen in 2000? No. Okay. Suck my dick, Ben Shapiro, you lying piece of shit. moving on.
2004 was supposedly an outgrowth of 2000 and also diebold voting machines. In 2016, Donald Trump was a tool of the Russians, and it was Facebook memes that got him elected. Don't lecture us about accepting elections.
It was not Facebook memes that got him elected. Obviously, it was because Hillary Clinton was basically damaged goods by this point. Right. People didn't like Hillary Clinton for lots of reasons. Right. But the Russian interference had a definite effect. You know, the Russian troll farms, the misinformation they were spreading, most definitely had an effect. You know, is it enough to sway a state? Maybe. Who knows? You know, somebody should do a deeper investigation of that. If somebody has, I'm not aware of it. But, yeah, that's the thing. It's like Ben Shapiro is not allowed to actually admit that these things are true. You know, he has to belittle all this stuff. Because obviously the evil Dems are just like jealous and butthurt that they lose all the time. When in real life, you know, it's like, let's not forget, George W. Bush got less votes in 2000. Trump got less votes twice. You know, when he also lost the popular vote in 2016, right? So it's like things seem to be trending the other way. You know, but no, it's like, oh, the Democrats don't accept elections. It's like, the projection with this guy is just so ridiculous. You know, when we have like fucking, they tried to fucking murder the vice president. They tried to murder the House representatives, right? People breaking in there with people with guns in the crowd with weapons. You know, the 3%ers had like, you know, right, basically were just waiting for the signal to go get all of their fucking rifles and then murder all these people, right? Who were basically being controlled by, you know, it's starting to look like from, you know, the January 6th investigation, starting to look like the 3%ers were being controlled, like their handler was Roger Stone. And Roger Stone was coordinating with the Trump people, right? And that was just like the one wing to make sure that was their muscle, to make sure that the count didn't go through, right? That the counts were not, you know, certified by Mike Pence until the fake electors could get there. That's what it's starting to look like, you know. The shitty thing about it is that the people in charge of investigating this, like if there's ever going to be anybody held accountable, it's like the very same people who are in on this are the ones sitting currently in Congress. Ted Cruz, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene admitted, you know, that her state that she was supposed to object to was Michigan. She fucking straight out admitted it. Yeah. You know, me and Matt Gaetz were supposed to object to Michigan until the fake electors could show up and steal it. Is she gonna be held accountable for that? No. Nothing will happen to her over this. Right? Because our government is fucked up. Our government is dysfunctional. Right? The people who tried to steal the election are in power right now. Nothing will fucking happen to them. And I'm glad. I'm glad that, you know, Joe Biden is sick of this shit and is finally calling these people out for what they fucking are. Let's watch a little bit more of this.
Elections. When you still say that Stacey Abrams is the rightful governor of Georgia after she lost by 50,000 votes in her last gubernatorial race.
That was also stolen, by the way. Let's not forget Brian Kemp was the person, as he was running for governor, he was the person in charge of certifying the election, right? Polling places were shut down, specifically in Democratic districts. People were kicked off. Democrats were kicked off the voting rolls in Georgia, right? So Stacey Abrams lost that election due to voter suppression. 100%. Right? So, yeah. Once again, Ben Shapiro sending out misinformation here. Propaganda doesn't have to be true. Let's always remember these lessons. Moving on.
Yes, it's really bad when you have both sides rejecting the results of elections. But let's stop pretending that this is a one-sided issue. It is not. It is bad when both sides do it. Democrats seem to have a rule. It's that it's really bad when you do it. It's great when we do.
Fuck you. Right? Fuck you, Ben Shapiro. The Democrats do not show up at, like, you know... Yeah, they objected. They objected to the election in 2000, right? Did they try to kill anybody? Did 5 people die when they objected, right? Did fucking 10,000 of their followers show up and smash the fucking windows down, right? Did the Secret Service have to shoot somebody because they were, like, going to go lynch the fucking House reps? Fuck you, Ben Shapiro. And the thing, he knows, right? He fucking knows that what he's saying is bullshit. He knows that this is not an apples to apples comparison, right? He knows that one of these things is not the same as the other one, right? He's doing it on purpose because he's a lying piece of shit. All right? I don't give a fuck. Fuck Ben Shapiro. He's a lying piece of shit. And the thing is that 20 million people watch his fucking crap all the time. He has like the biggest like follower base on fucking YouTube behind like Steven Crowder, you know? Right? This guy uses his power, you know, his influence is like beyond, it's ridiculous. And he spreads lies every fucking day. You fucking lying sack of human garbage. Ben Shapiro is. I don't understand this fuck. He's supposed to be a religious man. You know, God doesn't like it when you lie, Ben. I don't understand this shit, man. Moving on.
So he continues along these lines, right? You can't love democracy only when you win. This line is so astonishing coming from this leader of this party. Here we go.
You can't love your country only when you win. It's fundamental. American democracy only works only if we choose to respect the rule of law and the institutions that were set up in this chamber behind me. Only if we respect our legitimate political differences. I will not stand by and watch. I will not the will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
Well said. Well said. Good.
I will not stand by and watch the most fundamental freedom in this country, the freedom to vote, and have your vote counted and be taken from you and the American people.
What's Ben Shapiro about to say about voter suppression? Let's see. Is he going to actually have the balls to try to gaslight us all into thinking that Democrats suppress the vote? Let's see what he says.
There are people, did you know, who are actively attempting to prevent you from voting. Now, one of the things that's amazing here is that there has been a bipartisan possibility of a bill that's been brought up by Mitch McConnell in the Senate, and that is change the Electoral Count Act so that there is no possibility of rejecting certified votes from the states. The Democrats won't pass it because they want to run on these issues. They want to pretend that their opponents...
What is this?
Because they want to... There is no possibility of rejecting certified votes from the states. The Democrats won't pass it.
Okay, change the what act? What did you just say?
And that is change the Electoral Count Act.
Change the Electoral Count Act. Okay. I admit I have not heard of this. I like how he completely just let's see. Change the I can spell T-O Count Act. What does change the Electoral Count Act? Let's see. Here's data centers aimed to change the Electoral Count Act. Bipartisan Senate group announces deal on reforming the Electoral Count Act. So this is what I'm reading right now from NPR. It's funny how he completely glanced over voter suppression. It's almost like he didn't want to talk about that because the Republican record on voter suppression versus the Democratic record on, I mean, there's no comparison. Right. So okay. So he didn't try he didn't address it at all. He's just going to gaslight us on into thinking that it's going both ways. Well, what is the here? Let's move this over here. This is what I'm looking at. Bipartisan Senate group announces a deal on reforming the Electoral Count Act. Right. Okay. Is it going to say what's in it? Let's see here. Months of negotiations, blah, blah, blah. Including one to reform the Electoral Count Act, a widely criticized 1887 law that governs the process of casting and counting electoral college votes. Okay. What does it say? Joe Manchin and Susan Collins led the effort to reform the law, which would need 60 votes to break a filibuster. All right. Proposal unveiled Wednesday to reform the 16 co-sponsors. What does it do? Law itself was created after a chaotic election in 1867 that saw Democratic Samuel Tilden win the popular vote but lose the presidency because of contested election results. That was actually a interesting thing. It was basically a deal made in order to end Reconstruction. Samuel Tilden lost both the electoral count and the popular vote, and still became president. It was very crazy. We should do a stream on that one of these days. Let's see. What the fuck does it say? How would the law change? As the law exists now, only one member of the House and one member of the Senate need to change any of this set's electors. Updated language has raised that threshold, shifting the requirement to 20% of the members of each chamber. Okay, proposal would also enact a few measures aimed at ensuring that Congress can identify a single conclusive state of electors from each state. Identifying each state's governor, unless otherwise specified in the laws or constitution of a state effect on the election day, as responsible for submitting the certificate of ascertaining and identifying the state's electors. That's why they want it. Right here. Each state's governor, unless otherwise specified in the laws or constitution of a state, in effect on election day, as responsible for submitting the certificate of ascertainment identifying that state's electors. And requiring Congress to defer to slates of electors submitted by a state's executive pursuant to the judgments of the state or federal court. That's why they want it. Because this law would say the governor gets to send the electors, not the legislature currently in all of the states is who sends the state electors, right? And the laws are set up in such a way in every state that depending on whatever district gets won, then the legislature appoints electors. This law says no, the governor gets to do it. So Republicans have more governors, right? So the governor gets to go, well, I'm going to appoint my electors and they're going to vote the way I want. That's why he wants it. So basically what he's saying is the exact opposite. He's essentially lying to us, as I knew that he was. He's basically saying, hey, here's this law that says Republican governors get to steal any election they want and Democrats won't pass it. And this is evidence of them somehow being votes. It's like you see the propaganda here. He's saying the exact opposite. I should read more into that. I'll have to study more about what this proposal is. But it kind of sounds, just from that summary right there, kind of sounds like the exact opposite of what Ben Shapiro was saying it is. Because he's completely full of shit. Scumbag. You know what? Let's watch a little bit more and then I gotta end this. Because I can't fucking stand. I can only watch so much of Ben Shapiro before I want to go outside and like murder a small animal or something. Let's watch a little bit more.
So that there is no possibility of rejecting certified votes from the states. The Democrats won't pass it because they...
Remember, the exact opposite of that is true. What he just said, the exact opposite of that is true.
Want to run on these issues. They want to pretend that their opponents hate democracy and then run on that.
They're literally trying to pass a law which would remove democracy. You know, that's what that is, right? When the people vote one way and the governor sends, the opposite of how they voted, that's removing democracy. You know? Wow, the gaslighting is so does he even know that? I don't think he knows it. So there's only two options. He either knows that what he's saying is bullshit and is lying to us, or he doesn't know that what he's saying is bullshit. And I think he may not even know that this is what that law does. Yeah, and then again, I don't know. Ben Shapiro is not an unintelligent person. I mean, he's kind of an idiot. But what makes him an idiot is his stupid-ass rationalizations for conservative policies that have no basis in fucking reality. Where he tries to do what he's doing right here, where he gaslights people and tries to tell them the opposite of what they're seeing is true. When he tries to tell you that the opposite of reality is what's actually true. That's what makes Ben Shapiro an idiot. It's not because he's, like, not an unintelligent person. He's obviously fucking intelligent. He's just, using his powers for evil.
When he says, this line is so amazing coming from the Democrats, you can't love democracy only when you win. You know what the polls show? The polls show over and over and over again that Republicans remain patriotic. They say they love the country, even when Democrats win.
Donald Trump specifically said, I will accept the results of the election only if I win. That's what he's talking about, you fucking idiot. Not the polls say we're patriotic. And also, let's also remember, right, patriotism to the right wing is, like, not exactly what patriotism actually is. You love your country and you will sacrifice for your country, right? And, that's what patriotism is supposed to be. Patriotism to the right wing is like, defending it from satanic fucking Democrats. Right? Like, that's literally what it is. It's like, I'm gonna fight this country, to get rid of them evil fucking satanic baby raping Democrats. Like, that's literally what they're fucking talking about here. They literally think that Joe Biden and John Podesta are like, fucking strapping down children and scraping their faces off and drinking their brain juice, drinking the adrenochrome, because they're controlled by Satan, right? They're not actual patriots. But in real life, like, all of their, like, policies, they do the exact opposite of what a patriot would do, The Republicans, for example, you remember the whole thing where they, what was it, the PACT Act? Where because they got politically outmaneuvered, they were like a bunch of butthurt little children, so they decided to take healthcare away from fucking veterans. Remember that shit? Is that a patriotic thing to do? Kind of seems like the exact opposite of patriotism, isn't it? I can't stand this fucking asshole anymore. Let's turn this shit off. Fuck you, Ben Shapiro. Okay, we managed to get through almost 4 minutes of an 11-minute video this time. That's a new record for us. I don't think I've ever managed to get through an entire Ben Shapiro video. I can't stand his ass. It's like he's lying. Look at his fucking face. He's lying right at you. I think he knows he's lying. He's like... piece of shit. Ben Shapiro is a human piece of shit dressed up in a fucking $2 shirt. Right. Anyway, I gotta end this stuff, folks. I'm getting fucking hungry as fuck. And, plus I gotta go to the bathroom. So, let's go ahead and do our ending speech here. I just gotta open up all of my other websites and my social medias and stuff like that. If you like what I do, you can, and you want to support me, first off, well, like and subscribe. If you, and I know I gotta say that every time. I should actually get in the habit of saying it at the beginning of the stream there, because I know most people don't actually come all the way to the end. But if you do like what I do and you want to help me out, please like, subscribe, comment down in the bottom. Commenting actually helps the algorithm too. And if you want to give me some money and help me financially, I have my SD shop here. I make prints and stuff like that. I'll put this down in the chat for y'all. If there's any new viewers out there, that's my SD shop. I have a webcomic. It's called Hwanja.com. It has ninjas and talking ducks and stuff like that. People getting their heads chopped off. I have a DeviantArt site if you want to see more of my more of my artwork. Here's another print that I made, which is also going to be on sale at the SD shop. This is the Dragon Zord from Power Rangers, but I'm not allowed to call it the Dragon Zord, so it'll be called, like, I don't know, Dinobot or some shit like that. And this is my other YouTube channel, which I really haven't done very much with recently, but I have big plans for it. I'm going to be doing some like movie reviews and shit like that, so that'll be up on UC videos. So please come check me out at all of that stuff. And also, tell your friends, etc., etc., etc. And after the video publishes, I'll put links to my Twitter and, my Patreon and that kind of thing. But anyway, thank you guys all so much. I really appreciate you all coming. And it's good to see you, Adversary Fandom. Good to see you, Dynacat. And, Fat Man TV. Great to see you, too. You guys are the best. I will be back next weekend, next Saturday at 11. But I'm going to try to make a stream sometime in the middle of the week because I missed one. I missed last week because I was at a con. I was actually at a Power Rangers con. It was great. I made a decent amount of money there, too. So anyway, really appreciate you guys and everybody out there, fight the power, stuff like that. And adios.